And Dominic, I think we all went home happy at the end of the show. You know, maybe we didn't want to see Kenny Omega become the new AEW heavyweight champion. Maybe some of us did not really prefer that outcome. However, the circumstances surrounding it and the intrigue, Dominic, that came along with this, man, it's well done, very well done, and exciting. And again, who is going to start showing up? Who's going to show up on Impact? Who's going to show up on Dynamite? I mean, we've got a lot of very interesting things going on.
So many, man, and like from the perspective of the angle, and Don Callis teasing Kenny being on Impact on Access on Tuesday is already like just an interesting element that was not expected. Now, I talked about this on the Total F and Marks podcast about with Dan St. Germain and his crew there, and about how just like Impact is a brand that's, you know, needs to build itself back up in a lot of ways. And like it's a brand that like people are familiar with, but it's also a brand that's been like seemingly dead and then brought back to life on countless occasions. And you know, I cover Impact each and every week for WrestleZone every Tuesday, and it's to see it to realize that Kenny Omega is going to show up on there it's going to be crazy, because Impact is such a different product and how they present themselves and how they handle themselves from what AEW is. Now, I think the speculative report here is that they're not fully dipping their toes into I think it was Wrestling Inc. that reported this. Yes, it was. That they're not. This is going to be kind of a one-off, I think, for Kenny at Impact here, because he's doing it almost as a favor to Don Callis, who's like their executive producer there. So, but there's talk about the Good Brothers coming in and wrestling on AEW. And, you know, I'm sure Kenny's going to like make that presence known in Impact. So even if we're just getting a dip of, you know, a tease of the toe in the pool, so to speak, I think it's very good. At least, I mean, especially for Impact, but I mean, the willingness to be able to work with other promotions is something that's, you know, has been missing for quite a while on mainstream wrestling, because WWE has done that with Evolve and stuff like that. But I saw your tweet today where you were like, Triple H was like, oh, well, we're willing to work with, you know, any promotions, you know, but yeah, there's always a caveat with that, because we know WWE's the top dog here, and like, you know, they herald themselves as the torchbearer for pro wrestling, and to a certain extent they are, like, because of their name value and brand and everything like that. But, you know, honestly, the way their wrestling style is never the case. It's not the case. It's just that's the WWE style. So but I think it's gonna, the willingness to have that openness to maybe work with, well, they already have a relationship with NWA, and they already have a relationship with AAA at Lucha Libre, and then they're working on trying to get something going with New Japan. So it's just like all those elements are there, and it creates a lot of what you speak to all the time is the surprise element, the element of surprise, which can be utilized in very good fashion. So yeah, Mark, let's get your thoughts on it. I've been rambling for quite a while here.
No, that's all right. You know, I think when it comes to WWE, it's, you know, you almost look at them like they're like this juggernaut in professional wrestling. So a company like AEW trying to compete, any company coming in and trying to compete with a company like WWE that's kind of had a chokehold on the industry for decades. You know, it's a pretty impossible task. It's like a David and Goliath thing. But now all of a sudden you don't just have David and Goliath, you know, you've got David and a couple of his buddies coming up against Goliath, you know, so that's really the only way to compete. And the only way, if AEW ever says, hey, we want to go head to head with Raw, this is the way to do it. You know, you start getting talent to do crossover stuff. So just imagine this, Dominic. You know, around the time when, like, let's say it's 1999, WWF is starting to take over the Monday Night Wars. WCW is starting to fail and go downhill. What if Eric Bischoff or whoever makes a call to Paul Heyman and says, hey, look, let's cut a deal. Let's start. I'll start helping to fund your promotion, but let's start doing some crossover stuff. Let's bring some of your guys over trying to take over. I mean, all of a sudden, Dominic, WCW is back to being absolutely must watch. Forget the finger poke of doom. Is Sabu about to show up? Is Taz going to show up? Is RVD going to show up on Monday Night Raw? And that's kind of the idea right now. And you made a good point about the Good Brothers, Dom. I don't know if I necessarily believe this business from Wrestling Inc. about them, like just it's a one-off deal where Kenny's just going to show up and then that's that. The Good Brothers are good friends with the Young Bucks. A lot of these guys have very close personal relationships. And I can see this being like a pretty usual thing. I mean, the Young Bucks are tag team champions. They're looking for people to defend the titles against. I think the Good Brothers are a real shoo-in for a pay-per-view event.
Well, I honestly think so too. And I think this is more from the perspective of maybe AEW's way of handling it, because there is a certain thing of where you do want to establish your brand and get your brand over, your name over. So, I mean, while you want to interact with these companies and everything like that, you certainly want to protect the name value of All Elite Wrestling and what you present as your wrestling product. So I'm sure that's more, in favor in play to AEW's thought process and philosophy, because I mean, honestly, they hold all the cards here, when it comes to Impact's getting big benefits from this. So, I could totally see. And you know what? And so do the Good Brothers, though. So do Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows. Like, they hold a lot of good cards because Impact has been more than accommodating to them, because, they do Talk and Shop-A-Mania. They promote all their merchandise. They get anything they want over on that product. And and they're their big, I think they're their biggest stars, like, right now for Impact. So it's like, you want to make sure your stars are happy, and they are happy. And, what's interesting too about this is their love for New Japan. Like, the Good Brothers' love for New Japan, and they're wanting to work with New Japan. So, I mean, that's all there. And like a matter of I think we're going to see a connection ultimately too with AEW and New Japan. It's a matter of working out the logistics and forming some maybe relationships that maybe felt tense over the Harold Meade era of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, well,
they certainly brought up New Japan a couple of times during that main event, and Kenny Omega in his match against Okada. So it's this stuff just keeps coming up, and you're right. I think it's an inevitability. Another thing I wanted to touch on, Dominic, was I thought it was a really nice touch with the whole Don Callis situation. He had been on the program before, so him coming out is not some irregularity for this match. We've seen it before, and we know he's got a relationship with Kenny. So it was a nice touch, and he had this very I'm just a guest here, baby.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to be here, baby face kind of a vibe. And then it was almost like, okay, he helped decide the outcome of the match, and then he runs off with Kenny Omega, almost implying okay, now you're jumping ship to Impact now that you have the title, a la Ric Flair leaving WCW with the title and showing up on WWF TV. So it's just masterfully done, really a cool idea. Don Callis with a hilarious and incredible heel turn on live TV.